program. Is that our recommendation?
Due to reduction of state and local funds, I recommend that the board move the following personnel costs from the foundation program to IDEA ARRA fund. Number one, 1.0 FTE to Chatham Elementary School. Number two, 1.0 FTE to McIntosh Elementary School. Number three, 1.0 FTE to Leroy High School. Number four, 4.0 FTE bus drivers. And number five, 3.0 bus assistants.
You had a recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Beach makes the motion. Second? I second. Discussion?
We're transferring funds from what to what?
You're putting them in the IDEA ARRA funds.
From state to federal.
No.
We don't have this in here.
What's that?
Do we have a copy of that in here? Just make us a copy now.
Make a copy of it.
Because we can't remember all of that.
What you're doing is not creating new positions, you just transferring.
When we went over the budget with y'all individually and we discussed moving those funds from state to federal, to save those state units, this is just,
They just make
this
it
is
legal.
this is an item that we've already, talked about.
Making it legal.
These are effective for the next year's budget, starting in September, starting in October, going through September. And each of these, as Ron has indicated, the special ed people, we have indicated to you who they will be and what's due. This is just the finalization of that. And then on the transportation areas, we have had bus drivers, we have moved from transportation over to this ARRA fund. This will be a 2-year thing. If the economy hadn't picked up, we don't have additional funds back by then. We'll have to revert back to where they originally were and make further cuts to try to offset those additional expenditures.
But this doesn't change anyone's position, it's strictly changing funding.
Funding sources.
Further discussion? All in favor, let me know by show of hands. Unanimous consent. Allow the expenditures of instructional support funds and federal funding sources. That is our recommendation.
Due to the reduction of state and local funds, I recommend that the board allow the expenditure of instructional support funds, specifically for library enhancement, classroom supplies, textbooks, and technology from federal funding sources after all state and local funds allocated to these areas have been depleted.
You had the recommendation, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Each makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Dees, Mr. Beckton, second. Discussion.
Repeat those again, Mr. Savage.
Library enhancement, classroom supplies, textbooks, and technology.
So does that mean we're gonna have some money that they can use?
Can I explain on that? Because on foundation, where the teachers normally have, say, $500 for classroom supplies, or they normally have so much money for library enhancement, they don't have that money this year. They had just a little bit in textbook money. That's the reason it said after the funds have been depleted, they will have to spend all of their textbook money that the state has given them first. But then with the Title I ARA money, the stimulus money, if the school chooses to budget, every school has a plan, and so it goes back to the needs at that school. They have to write their plan according to the needs. But if indeed their plan shows that they have a need for that classroom supply money or textbooks or whatever, this will allow them to spend money in those areas that normally would be supplanting. But with this action, it will allow them to buy some textbooks. Normally textbooks are taboo with federal funds. You can't do that. But you know, because of the resolution, because of the situation, they will allow us to use the stimulus money for that. But every school will not be using these funds for all of these items. It goes back to each individual school and what their needs are and what they choose to budget their funds for.
And throw one thing in about what Ron said about textbooks. Right now, we looked at that letter and said impossible proration for 2010. We haven't been declared yet. We've had conversations with Principal Mr. Massey now. We do have a little bit of textbook money in there right now. If that happens, as is projected, I think that's probably one of the areas that they'll take first and then go from there. So we're gonna need to wait and see what happens on that and then go forward. So it may, the extension of textbook money may be moot, you know, with this.
And each school will have to decide, because, I mean, they only have a limited amount of this R money. It's not gonna cover everything. So that's the reason they're going to have to target the greatest need.
Have these plans already been written at school, or they are yet to be written?
They're in process.
They're working on it.
They're in process. They've been sending us some tentative budgets, and I'm sure there will be some adjustments when school starts, and we will have to amend it probably later in the year, because once school starts, they can better see what their actual needs are. So it's kind of a estimate or approximation at this point.
They actually started their plans in May, but without them getting their accountability results until now, they can't really put the gist of it in there, but they've already started it. They're working on it.
We had to have some budget figures to get started, so.
These committees that works on these plans, do they have the time to do what needs to be done, or are they just, well, let's do it this way, since that's the easiest way?
Mr. Massey, you might want to
Well,
address
So
that.
you're the only one that's here can address that.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that the committee takes those needs right from the school improvement plans, and we have had, you know, very lengthy discussions. Now, these are taking place, in most of these cases, we meet after school, and, but there's, you know, it's not a short-circuited process, and, you know, that's, so, do some of them, you know, want to hurry up and get out of there and go home. Yeah, but being professional, you know, we try to address the needs of the school, and I think that's been done very comprehensively in that.
Well, I think the key there will be principals. You know, your organization and getting these committees together, these groups together, and kind of lead them into the areas and show those areas that's needed. Sometimes people are just tired at the end of the day, and they just, well, I'll rubber stamp that or something, and don't really discuss it like they need to. You know, I've been guilty of that myself, I'm sure, from time to time, and most people have. But these are not ordinary times.
Yeah, and since they're dealing with their monies, you know, they're looking at these technology and supply monies and so forth like that. They're keenly interested, you know, in the distribution of this. So it's not something that is an abstract to the people on the committee.
And it is a time-consuming process, you know, we all know that. But if we look at it like this is their plan for what they're gonna do. This is their roadmap for where they were at the end of this school year. These are my results, this is what I have to work with, and this is where I am, but this is where I wanna go. And that needs to be a working document. And everybody on that faculty needs to be a part of that planning. So that it's a part, it's their map, it's their guidance for that year, and it's so important because their professional development, their parental involvement, everything is wrapped up in that plan. And it's probably one of the most important things they can do, to know what they need to do in that classroom to help those kids.